As you heard, my name is Will, and I do have quite a unique job. I'm a comic book artist, but basically what I do is I create illustrations for a living. So that's me. Hopefully you can get that from the drawing. Sometimes I actually colour those drawings, and on rare occasions I actually write the words as well. Okay, well, I do watch a lot of TED Talks, and I get quite inspired with them. There's something for me that get the creative juices flowing. But the TED Talks that I watch, they aren't the ones in design. The ones that really, really fascinate me are the ones that talk about, they wonder what life is about there in space, what kind of worlds are there. And it really always gets me thinking about what's possibly out there. The TED Talk that I would have loved to have been able to give or to love to see is if someone went and built a spaceship. They came here, they told you they did that. They told you they put on a spacesuit, and eventually they took off and they went to another planet. I've always wondered what it's like out there on a different planet. And it's the question I ask people, would you be able to think of what it actually looks like? I picture a green sky with purple clouds. I've always pictured floating buildings above the ground to leave the nature unspoiled. And I've always wondered, what would the local aliens be like? Would they be hostile towards you? Or would they actually, would they be nice to you after a while? Who knows? Okay, I'm not that into that much, but basically what I wanted to do there was give you a quick example of what I do and to cut to the core of my job. I'm a storyteller. If you ask any other comic book artist out there, it's about telling a story. I could stand up here and I could debate comics for ages, but I really want to talk more about storytelling. What I do is I sit down at my desk, and in an age-old tradition, I build worlds right from there. So in thinking about what to talk about today, we're given things like a TED outlines. There's even a TED Talk on how to give good TED Talks. One of the main things that they say is that you have to be able to tell a story. So I'm a professional storyteller, surely I should be able to do something like that. But what I actually want to do is I want to talk about why we should tell stories in the modern world. And I've been lucky to be able to tell stories in some of the most established and loved universes that are out there in worlds like Jim Henson and Disney. And the one I work in the most of the time is Star Wars. To me, it's like playing inside in that world. But you don't just have to find storytelling in these published worlds. You can find storytelling absolutely anywhere. Storytelling, you can find it in a song. You can find it in poetry. The most common form of storytelling can be when people are gossiping about you behind your back, something that everybody does. Storytelling is the conveying of words, sounds, and images with an embellishment and improvisation. And it's that improvisation that comes from our creative spark. Now, we've already had a TED Talk today that did talk about creativity, and all the points they made are absolutely right, that our society does tend to take from it. I've found that in teaching kids how to draw Star Wars characters, that a lot of kids, they do have a fear of showing you their work. They bring you their artwork, and you can see it in their eyes. They're really, really afraid of what you're going to like about your drawings. They're afraid of what their friends are going to think about it. They're going to be afraid that someone else in their class is going to be better than them. There's just a general fear to create. And when you do tell a kid that their drawing is good, they're going to want to create more. The reason why I got into drawing, and I remember it very, very vividly when I was a kid, when I started to realize that I did like it, I was about 6 years of age, and I won a competition. It was against 2 or 3 people in the village. I won a pencil sharpener for a best drawing competition. Instantly, I thought I was the greatest artist in the world. I needed to create for people, that people just wanted to see my drawings. And that's why something like the kitchen fridge in someone's house, that is a great forum for children to put their artwork on, because they know that when someone looks at their drawing, whether it's their mother or their father or anything like that, that they're really gonna appreciate the drawings. And the point that I'm going to make is that kitchen fridge, that forum is expanding exponentially, and it's expanding for everybody. Okay, an obvious statement. Information is spreading around the world way more faster now, but what's happening with that is that the audience is spreading. If we bring it back to comics, if we bring it back to my industry, comics have been started to being released digitally now at the same time when they're released in the stores. Probably most of the people in this audience here haven't been to a comic book store before. That the comic book stores out there, they're great, but what's happening is that people are now able to access these stories on their smartphones, so it's widened my audience. Statistically now, the first people who are going to buy a comic book when a comic book is released is that they get woken up by their phone. That phone is their alarm. They turn over on that same phone. They can buy the comic book and they can read it on the exact same device. My media has left behind, or my industry has left behind the need for a physical store like that, and it's reached everyone's pocket overnight. It's widened the audience. There's been, in the last few years, there's been a much bigger call for comics that are just web-based alone. There's been a bigger call for women's comics, and that has allowed for more female creators to enter into the industry. There's a wider audience, so now there's a bigger room for more creative storytellers. To highlight this, now I'm going to take on a little bit of a story, and I want to talk about where things have come from. I love my job. I love drawing. I would like to think that no matter what time I was born or whatever I would have been doing, that I would have ended up doing this anyway. If I was in Ireland 1,000 years ago, me being the same person, I would like to think that I would have been able to be a storyteller then as well. The first thing that comes to my mind from 1,000 years ago is a book like the Book of Kells. I could have been doing that job. I could have been the guy illustrating the pages. The Book of Kells is a book that tells a story through images and words. The people who did that were storytellers. If I go back even further, go back to 2,000 years ago, if I couldn't get my hands on paper, I could have been a caveman painting on the side of walls. That's just the way things were done. There was storytelling there all of the time. And I'm going to give you an example of a story that started back then, that's still in circulation now, that's gone through all these methods of distribution. Cu Chulainn, a legendary Irish figure, he started as a story by word of mouth. He started with two people around the campfire talking about a story. It's a story that survived from generation to generation, from person to person, because it was a story that was strong enough that it deserved to survive. As time went on, the first physical forms of the story started appearing when people started putting pictures onto chalices. So everyone who saw those chalices, they started to be able to see more of the story in a new format, and that chalice was reaching a new audience. To me, it's almost like a comic book again. It was telling the story through images. Moving along into Ireland, then when people could write, when people could read, they started documenting it in the Book of Durrow and the Book of Leinster. As we went forward through time, it started being translated into books, into English language, into other languages, and it started to spread around the world then. And the latest one, the one that I'm working on now, is a digital version, and there's going to be a traditional and a digital version. So that now is going to be able to release everyone with a smartphone, or to reach everyone with a smartphone straight away. So the potential audience has changed dramatically. When we started with just two people talking, it has to pass slowly by word of mouth. Me, as an artist, if that was the way my stuff was being passed along, it reaches slowly through, let's say, the village where I'm from. It gets passed from person to person, whereas now things can go out a lot much faster. And I know that I'm comparing between 2,000 years ago, but as we saw in one of the earlier talks, the internet has only been around in the last 20 or so years. It's not that long ago that your stuff had to be passed around by word of mouth. There's been a dramatic change lately. What's happening now is that information is being uploaded straight away onto the internet, onto things like that, and it's been documented straight away. When people look back on this time frame now, they're going to come all the ways back to here, and they're going to see a massive increase in information going up, and that includes an increase on people's creative output, their art, their illustrations, their music. So let's go back to that fear of creating, the fear I talked about with the child when he was afraid to actually draw. When I gave that example at the start of me wanting to be on planets, I wasn't just looking for a cheap laugh. I asked the question, have you ever wondered what that planet would look like? Did you allow yourself to think about what is it like? The creativity that you get when you start creating, it does build up as you get older, and it starts to last forever. If you were to go home right now, and if you were to create a story, to write a fictional story, to write a bit of music, to do anything like that, any type of a story, what's after changing is that it doesn't have to just go to the person in the room across from you. It can go to anyone. Maybe your family don't like it, maybe your friends don't like it, but you put that story up online, that can be read by someone on the other side of the planet, and you might be able to find your audience over there. But we can push the boundaries of that even further. It's not just people somewhere, it's at some different time as well. if you put a story up now, who's to say that one of your ancestors 400 years down the line doesn't find it? This is all being stored in cloud computing and everything that we talked about earlier. They will stay there. This is the first time that the creative playground is not just for the professional storytellers or for people being published. The creative playground is now being opened up to everyone. Everyone's creations can last forever. Everyone's creations can reach the whole entire world. We're the first generation that now has that opportunity that other people didn't. If you look at my art, for me, all of my generations of ancestors, all the ways along, there's no record of what they produced. If there was any paintings, they would have been lost. If there was any drawings, they would have been lost. Whereas anyone that comes after me, anyone of my descendants, and this is not just because my stuff is getting published, this is for anyone now. They're going to be able to see all of the creations that I worked on. They're going to be able to see over the course of my life how hopefully I improved at art, where I learned certain things, where I picked up some storytelling techniques. That opportunity is now there for everyone. I think that the fear people have of creating something now is wrong, because the audience is there now for everybody. There should be a bigger fear. There should be a fear of that. What if you don't create something? There is an audience out there that is missing out on your work. And that's the point that I have to make today. So, thank you.